Actually, it works quite well from airport here. It's a smaller airport, so it's quickly that patients get out, and we have the limousine service bringing the patients here. So it's actually quite convenient, and that's why they also come from far away.
Guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen.
Wird schon gleich gefilmt hier.
Hallo.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Hello, Marcus.
How are you doing?
Nice to meet you. Fine, thanks.
Great. Yeah, welcome to Vienna.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Дмитрий Черкасов, это Ассоциация тераностики, и мы находимся сегодня в уникальном месте. Это клиника, тераностическая клиника в Австрии, в Вене. И коллеги любезно согласились нам показать, как она организована, и рассказать о своей клинической практике.
Меня зовут Михаил Ласковым, я медицинский онколог, и благодаря приглашению коллег, организованной Ассоциацией тераностики Дмитрием, мы имеем возможность посетить единственную в Европе клинику амбулаторной тераностики и посмотреть, как это организовано, потому что это опыт не только для России уникальный, но и, судя по всему, для всего мира.
Right, the patient is coming right through the door as you were, and then will be welcomed by Eva or office manager, and then everything is prepared, and also up front patients are prepared by me with a personal contact and also with documentation and well informed, being having already read the written informed consent and then coming here and already had the discussion. My name is Markus Hartenbach, so we are running here a theranostic institution in the center of Vienna. And me and my partner, Professor Watzak, who's a radiochemist, we are providing radioligand therapy on the one hand for prostate cancer patients with lutetium actinium PSMA, and also other radioligand and radiopeptide therapies for neuroendocrine tumors, for example. Upcoming now also for other solid tumors with gallium and lutetium FAPI. So in general, we are an outpatient clinic here, and so I have more than 20 years experience with theranostics, starting from the very scratch in my doctorate with prostate cancer in Germany, and then 2014 I came to Vienna to the university clinic, and 2018 we started the private facility here.
Nice molecular, yeah.
Yeah, this is here you can originally see the molecules and the compounds. This is lutetium PSMA INT, the most frequently used radiopharmaceutical we have here. And Wolfgang just had this chemistry construction set and then he made that. This is also quite interesting here.
It's not a LIGO. It's not a LIGO.
Yeah. This is lutetium dotatate for neuroendocrine tumors. So we also offer that, and we are about to set up also actinium dotatate. There are some brand new data for actinium dotatate now. This is working also in heavily pre-treated and also with heavy cancer burden neuroendocrine tumor patients.
Can you give it after lutetium? I mean, actinium after lutetium, because
this is there's a lot of data already for prostate cancer, for example. There's a lot of data from Heidelberg, where they did the sequential when lutetium PSMA was not working anymore because of the beta emitter, which has kind of weaker transportation of radiation to the cells. Then actinium with a very high dose focused radiation range is only 1 to 2 cell diameters. This one is then still effective if lutetium fails. But actinium still has some issues with the salivary glands because there's also uptake in the salivary glands. Our approach here is mostly that we start with actinium if you have a heavy infiltration of the bone marrow, so that we don't affect the bone marrow with lutetium in the initial phase. And then the second and third therapy we switch to lutetium because this is bone marrow preserving.
You mean you combine even in the absence of progression, right? You just start with actinium and then
Yeah.
Just continue like maintenance. But
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, let's go on, of course. So what we are also, and which he hasn't built yet, because you see there's a free window where we can now offer also FAPI ligand PET CT and FAPI ligand therapy then, let's say, on the intermediate run, because fibroblast activation protein inhibitor is the new kid on the block. So this is something working in over 30 solid tumors for imaging perfectly, because it's like, let's say, the better FDG, because of the cancer-associated fibroblasts are responsible mostly for over 90% of the tumor burden. And they are independently from the cancer. So in solid cancers, we often have a various, but sometimes also very high expression of these cancer-associated fibroblasts, which have the receptor FAP alpha. And we have a ligand for the FAP alpha, and everybody is doing research on that at the moment. We are working together with a company in Boston. We can offer already the imaging with PET CT, and we are in a phase of, let's say, some initial trials on patients which have no other option in a named patient use to see if FAP therapy can do something for them. So this is what's coming up right now.
So you are doing some trials here in this clinic.
No, we are also able to do trials, but at the moment it is like let's say a pre-phase, mainly we do it on named patient use here. So if really, according to the Austrian law, if there is no other option for the patient.
Like on compassionate basis, right?
Yeah, compassionate is a bit different. Compassionate means there is an official trial with that, and then other clinics are also allowed to use that. The named patient use is really something very special in Germany and Austria, that you can say, okay, everything was done for the patient, and now what else? Is the patient supposed to die, or is there another option what can be done? And this is the
and you can give anything you kind of think
that sounds,
will...
not things. So of course there also needs to be some proof of that concept, and FAP is already investigated at UCLA and in Heidelberg and so on and so on. So
the reason I'm asking, because I'm also involved in clinical trials and even in phase 1, so that's I think
right.
The regulatory thing is very interesting.
It's very interesting, and of course, this is something we can offer if it's working. If it's not like working, and at the moment the FAP therapy looks a little bit like, needs to be modified a little bit, but this is coming the next weeks and months, and I'm pretty sure that then we have a longer resistant time of FAP in the tumor, which delivers more radiation. You see, it's a difference between normal pharmaceuticals, which have a real effect in the body, or radiopharmaceuticals, and this is still where we have to convince the authorities, because this is just like you have a target and then you do targeted irradiation. It's like external radiation. You don't have so much obligations from external radiation, but once you inject something in the vein and you have internal radiation, they say, oh, it's a pharmaceutical. But it's not really doing anything to your body. It is just like attaching, irradiating, and then the only thing you can count or you have to be aware of is the radiation dose. And if you are killing other normal organs, normal tissues, and this is our limitation, not the pharmaceutical effect. All right, but let's proceed. We are just in the hallway here. This is radium-223, radium dichloride Xofigo, approved medication in prostate cancer with bone metastasis. So this is working on active bone metastasis. It's not targeting cancer cells, it's targeting the osteoblast, which is just taking the radium-223, and then the osteoblasts are killed. And so if the cancer is right there, we assume that the cancer is also killed, and it has shown like 3.8 month mean survival benefit, and that's why it was approved. So we are also able to offer that, but in the era of lutetium and actinium PSMA in prostate cancer, most of the patients want to have PSMA ligand therapy, because it's not only directed to bone, it's directed to every metastasis in the body. Yeah, let's go through my office here. So this is something what we wanted to make a little bit feeling like at home and not like coming to somebody who is sitting in a big chair and you are in front of a big desk. So it's like discussing with the relatives, the closest relatives and the patient, and of course showing some data, showing the PET-CT images and working on all that the patient understands what's going on and can ask all his or her questions to be well prepared. Yeah, this is this is a sensor here. This is what happens to everyone. We have it all touchless because we are working here with radioactivity, and then of course if you have any contamination on your hands or so, then it's better that doors are working touchless. So, yeah.
You have to follow special local authority rules or special
correct.
regulation
So,
terms.
Yeah.
You mean
So
safety, radiation safety?
Yeah.
Radiation safety. When we started, we have a radiation safety officer who is responsible for our a medical physicist who is responsible for our institution. We have somebody who is all the time here when we are doing therapy, who is responsible for let's say contamination and whatever. If it happens, it never happens. But I mean, this is you also have to have the responsible persons for that. And in 2018 we got the official approval to be an outpatient facility. Outpatient facility is quite common in the US, for example, and also in France and so on, but in Germany and Austria that was pretty new. In Germany it's not allowed to treat patients, outpatients with lutetium PSMA, for example. They have to stay on a ward for 2 weeks. And in Austria it was also something that was quite common to put them on a ward, you know, the walls full of lead, and then you really feel like a cancer patient. And I said like, okay, no, I mean, these patients are feeling quite healthy. They are not really aware having cancer. Why should we put them in a hospital? And so from the radiation safety point of view, it was always possible to say you can be released because you are not sending out so much radiation that you are a threat for other persons, other people. And this is where we did measurements everywhere and show data, and then the authorities said, yeah, you are totally right, so this is below the limit and you can release the patient.
Minute Medical is in fact the only outpatient facility for the radionuclide therapy in Europe, right?
Yeah, so when we started, I don't know exactly all at every time point if there's anybody else who's doing that for real outpatients, but so the facilities I know always put the patients on a ward.
And regulation-wise, as I could hear from you, there is a kind of European common legislation about radiation safety, and then each country has
right. This is each country and then each district as well.
Oh,
so
really?
we are in the district of Vienna, and if you go to Lower Austria, for example, or Carinthia or wherever, then you have different regulations. So this is always the sole discrete responsibility of the. You're getting too close again. I'm sorry. Yeah, play a little bit with the door. No, this is you are totally right. So this is sometimes complicated because it's authorities and it's a lot of convincing and showing data, of course. But we are controlled each and every year for documentation and what we do. We have a upper level of radiation we are allowed to handle here per week, and so this is something where we are, where there's.
Maybe we can continue a tour, and when we can sit somewhere and have a discussion.
Right. Okay. Then I will show you only the treating room, or don't say operating room. It's just where the patient is treated. So also able to watch television in the meantime, listen to a piano concerto, whatever, and then just here on that chair, which can be moved in every direction so that the patient is really sitting quite comfortable here. And it takes like 15 minutes, the therapy. This is quick, but it should be comfortable as well. So.
An injection here as well, yes?
Injection is here, yeah, it's an infusion most of the time. If you take lutetium, then it's infusion. and and this is pretty quick. We have some pre-medication with corticoids for preventing swelling and supporting the therapy, and then after the pre-medication we start with the lutetium, and as I said, lutetium is like 15 minutes. Lutetium PSMA. Dotatate is a bit longer because of course you need nephroprotective amino acid infusion ahead, and then it takes a bit longer. So the preparation takes a bit longer. That's pretty much it here. So it's not a big deal, it's not a big show, and the patient also feels nothing about the therapy. It's
So it's the only one treatment room, right? The only treatment room is this one, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you bring the.
We are very discreet and facility, and this is of course why it's also a matter that we are not the cheapest one on that part. But the patient is able to come here very discreet and also drive through the court and the yard, and with a chauffeur, for example. We have a limousine service bringing the patients from the airport, and then nobody sees you coming in here, because of course we have some patients who want to stay in privacy and then come here, and nobody else is here. It's not like that we are like this big hospitals where you are one out of a million
in a queue in 5
in a
hours.
queue, right? You come here, everything is focused on you. You also have your doctor 24/7 afterwards, before. So, and of course we have a lot of US patients, for example, as well. And then we have a time shift, and I have to be available sometimes also at night time for questions and whatever comes along with the therapy. So although it is outpatient, you are not left alone afterwards. If you are feeling some nausea or whatever, feeling bad, you need, maybe some patients are in such a bad condition, need blood transfusion. We are connected here to every other doctor, to private hospitals where you can get blood transfusions if you need, where you can get intensive care and whatever you need.
For emergency.
For emergencies. We never had an emergency because the therapy is not producing emergencies, but I mean, it can happen anything, and then you are not alone, you are treated here completely. So you have complete access to everything.
So you're receiving here the syringe with a radiopharmaceutical ready for injection, or you are preparing from the...
No, we are preparing here. I can show you next. So what we also do, if the patient is then done with a therapy, then directly he can go to the relatives in the waiting area.
And you
then.
say it's only 15 minutes, right?
And this is only 15
that's
minutes.
it.
Most of it is talking and explaining and
Right.
looking at the reports and looking at the images and really make a sophisticated choice, which dose, which radionuclide, which sequence, and so on and so on. So really make a personalized treatment schedule for the patient. Also now in the awareness that we have to combine other medications with a radioligand therapy to improve it. For example, to improve PSMA expression in patients who have lower PSMA expression. Especially combination of anti-hormonal treatments with radiation treatment is as long as external radiation treatment exists, but also for internal radiation treatment it can be very, very supportive. And so the not the sequential treatment, the one fails, let's try the other fails, let's try the other. Then cancer can always adapt to the treatment. If we combine it, then we come from different angles and the cancer has, let's say, a lower chance of relapsing. Okay, then let's go to the lab. We are coming with a camera team, so maybe we can move that a little bit. So it's maybe better not going directly in the lab, but you see from here as well, this is the hot cell, because you were asking if we have a ready to use or not. So today we have the technician here who is doing quality control and quality checks. But this is the hot cell where lutetium and actinium or radium, they are coming. So radium is ready to use, of course, but lutetium and actinium, we do the reaction to dotatate or PSMA, the synthesis. And then that's why we have also, my partner is a radiochemist, so he is responsible for all that. And once it is produced, production is in the morning, for example, and then patients are coming at noon and getting the radiopharmaceutical. So what we have to order, of course, because we don't have a nuclear power plant, we have to order the nuclide, lutetium or actinium, and then everything else is in our production.
So you are buying ready for dispensing radiopharmaceuticals, or ready for preparation?
We buy precursor and nuclide.
Okay.
And then do the reaction here. So you buy lutetium and you buy the precursor PSMA, the cold PSMA, and then you can do the coupling reaction here.
So the assistant can take a syringe with...
After my partner, Professor Watzak, has produced it, it's ready to use, and it's in a glass bottle for infusion, and then of course with a shield surrounding, and then it's going to the...
And he's going to this injection room?
To the injection room,
and inject.
Puts it on the mount, and then, yeah, we are ready to start.
So the syringe itself is produced in the room, right, not here. So here the vial, and there the syringe.
No. It's everything is produced here,
okay.
and then once it's ready,
right.
you know, ready for injection, already with a
Okay.
tube and everything, then
Right.
it's going to that room. So everything is done here, and this is because the hot cell is full of lead, and so nothing is coming out, and then you can work in there. Also, what you see here, this is a fully automated system, so this is something which is then done, or the computer does it with a module inside, and yeah.
You mean the reaction itself?
The reaction, yeah. It is something, you know, this is something which has a program, and the program is running that you put whatever saline now and heat up and whatever.
And it controls the output, right?
Right.
So
And then it's quality control. We have a lot of quality checks, HPLC, DC, and so on, so that really the purification and the quality is guaranteed afterwards. So there we are working very sophisticatedly, because it is something that needs to be 100% sure.
You got a short presentation on the website explaining the preparation of radioligands.
I see.
Because this is definitely a very interesting part here, and this is something which is also pretty unique. But I mean, we are doing that now for, let's say, PSMA we are doing for almost 10 years now. We were the pioneers here in Austria, and in parallel starting with the Germans, because we were coming from Germany. And and this is something we first started here at the university clinic, and it was the same team. And then in 2018 we said, okay, we start a private institution also providing that. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
The kitchen is not so interesting, you don't have to film that. Yeah, that's the institution, and of course we also have a bathroom if necessary, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, and then we can sit together in the waiting area, or if you want, I also have a little presentation on my laptop concerning the theranostic approach. If you are interested in that, we can look at some images as well.
With pleasure.
Maybe it's interesting. Yeah. All right. Yeah, this is just like a quick introduction. This is a talk I also had now at UPMC, Pennsylvania. They University of Pittsburgh, because as I said, we have a lot of US patients and referring doctors from the US, because the approval trial for lutetium PSMA was done also in the US, and then afterwards they had big delivery problems and everything, and then everybody wants to have that therapy because it was so successful, and so some of the patients also are coming here and taking the journey. Actually, it works quite well from airport here. It's a smaller airport, so it's quickly that patients get out, and we have the limousine service bringing the patients here. So it's actually quite convenient, and that's why they also come from far away. And yeah, this is something where we are located here in the middle of Vienna, and this is really, yeah, all in foot walking distance here, the nicest sightseeing things. Maybe you already discovered that yesterday, or you know Vienna. Probably.
I think it's the most central theranostic clinic in the world.
Yeah, yeah. This is really something where we were a bit disruptive, let's say it like that, and where we say, okay, it is possible to do it here. Of course, we had to measure from all other apartments surrounding us. So this, and then you need to put a high activity here in the middle of the room, and then you measure if anything is coming through the walls. But this is the good thing about Vienna. We have these old buildings with very thick walls, and then nothing is getting out, and everything was perfectly done. So what we offer here is, of course, also PET-CT imaging in collaboration with a nearby institution who has the PET-CT scanner. So it's not necessary that everybody's buying a PET-CT scanner here. You simply buy slots, and then the patients can go there. We also have production there. We also have a lab there for producing gallium gallium-related radiopharmaceuticals like gallium PSMA, gallium FAPI, gallium dotatate. So we also have that production there.
Here on site, or
it's on the scanner, in the scanner facility. Yeah,
okay.
There we have the
Which
production.
is probably Vienna hospital here, the university hospital, right?
No. It's also a private
Okay,
clinic.
okay.
A private clinic which is on the Danube Channel. It's also like 5 minutes with a taxi from here.
Right.
So this is quite convenient. Patient doing the imaging in the morning and then coming here at noon, around noon, and we have the discussion on the findings, and then in the afternoon, if we already know, for example, from previous investigation that PSMA expression is there for prostate cancer, we can do the therapy in the afternoon. And then we have an actual PET-CT image from the morning. We are also working together with a lab here, a private walk-in laboratory where you can do your blood sampling and everything.
So you can arrange this somehow patient flow in a very short way.
Very short way.
In 1-2 days.
1-2 days, everything is possible. Yeah.
Okay, that's.
But also we are working together with the center who's doing biopsies, for example, because for tissue analysis, genetics, and so on, we also need sometimes biopsies. This is done in a private hospital under computer tomography control, for example. I'm sorry. And so this can all be organized. My wife is a pathologist, so she's doing the analysis then as well. And so this is all out of one family, which is pretty quick then. And so this can all be organized, that you have a complete package then.
And you have access for all data for, you can see the PET-CT scans on your
This is
laptop.
direct access, yeah. So we have direct access to the server of the imaging facility, so we can simply download the images, and when the patient is coming here, I already had a look at the images. The patient doesn't have to bring a CD or something like that. So I already had a look at the images, and I could start discussion then right away. That's quite convenient, I think.
So it's about how to build up the complete conventional oncology center using the outsourcing.
Definitely.
That's what we also do back home. Exactly.
I mean, this is. I mean, we should use, let's say, common approaches, and we should optimize it. And still, this is very convenient for the patient. Sometimes patients think, if I'm in one house, then I can have everything in that house. But it's not that complicated here to say, okay, then I step in a taxi, bringing me 5 minutes to another facility, and the facility is taking care of the imaging, and then also going to another facility for a biopsy. So this is very convenient because it's very close by, and so it is nearly one.
And the same kind of thing happens even if you're under the same roof, because you never take the patients directly to the biopsy.
No.
He has to home,
Yeah.
then has to, because
Exactly. Then the only thing is that you had to drive to the same facility again, but I mean, where's the sense on that? This is just in short what we offer here. Then the gallium fibroblast activation protein inhibitor PET-CT, and then of course also the related theranostic approach with lutetium and actinium. You know. Theranostics, we are always saying, because the compound is equally suitable for imaging and therapy. Mostly you even use the exact same compound, and this is what you see here. If you see that this is the cancer cell, then you have a receptor or an enzyme or a structure on the surface, and the green thing is the ligand. You have the ligand for that, and the ligand is the key for the lock. And if you have the key for the lock, then you can load it with whatever you want, radiation, cytotoxic agents, and whatever. So we can load it, for example, with gallium-68 for PET-CT imaging, and afterwards we can load it with lutetium or actinium for therapy. And then the approach is what you see is what you treat, and then of course if you inject it over the vein, it destroys the cell because it's also internalized, and then it's irradiating the cell itself, but also the neighbor cells. But the neighbor cells not in a way that it's damaging healthy tissue, because only lutetium with 1 millimeter range, it's damaging other tumor cells as well as the cancer-associated fibroblast in the surrounding of the tumor. So you don't really need only tumor cells, because there's a crossfire effect where it's also killing other cells related to the tumor. So destroying the microenvironment of the tumor, which is then the very good effect on that. Yeah, this is just like a little bit too much in detail, but I mean with a PSMA, it is a bit like prostate cancer was just like something in a black box. We didn't know. We had a rising PSA and we didn't see anything, and then in the era now of PSMA, where we really have highly focused concentration of PSMA, we can see lesions down to whatever 1 millimeter, and this is a game changer. This was definitely a game changer for that. So just to look at some images also. I mean, lutetium PSMA is done now for a long time already, almost 10 years. And so everybody is asking also for long-term results. And in the mean, we know from the vision trial, the data, if the patient is really at the end of treatments, then it showed like 4 month improve of survival. But this is not the only thing. Lutetium PSMA is something which for several patients we are monitoring now is really like a game changer in life, because it is bringing the tumor to a complete remission, and then over the years it hasn't come back. So if the patient sees a pure number of benefit which is in the mean calculated, then the patient says, oh come on, why should I do that? But for a lot of patients it is really something where they say, I'm pain-free now, and this is the best thing about lutetium PSMA. And now I don't feel my cancer anymore, and I'm in a complete remission for a long time. And this is really something what we also monitored now here. A patient in October 2015, we started treatment, and you see here the black spots are lymph node metastasis, and we did 3 times lutetium PSMA. And then 1 year later, he presented that image here with a reduced PSA and also very much reduced tumor burden. But we said, okay, let's do it again. And we combined it with a short-term abiraterone, Zytiga treatment. And this patient now for several years is not taking anything anymore. And he was here last in October, and still showing nothing, and PSA is 0. So, and this is not the only one. So it is definitely for some patients a real game changer. And this patient was young, 61 years, and had everything, anti-hormonal treatment and chemotherapy and everything. So definitely this is something what is really working. Let's have a look at some other examples. And this is a quite good example also of a combined treatment where we did a single injection of Lupron for lowering testosterone levels while combining it with lutetium PSMA. And he was coming down from 662 to undetectable, which is of course a combined effect, but you see in the image he had a very large tumor in the prostate, lymph node metastasis, bone metastasis, lung metastasis, and that was all really coming down, and the patient was then feeling like newly born. As always in cancer treatment, cancer adapts and cancer can strike back, this is for sure, but I mean, studies are now also trying to prove that earlier treatment with radioligand therapy is really makes sense and is producing longer term remissions.
Вай, понимаешь картинку, да, в чем прикол?
Да.
Я просто хотел рассказать. Вот эти черные точечки, да, они ушли полностью.
По поводу метастатических терапий, да, как молодые могут быть пациенты?
Как что?
Ну, как возраст.
Возраст?
Самых молодых. По поводу метастатических.
Именно на практике или по закону? So, do you have what is the youngest patient you have here for this treatment?
Oh, we had patients here with 39 years, prostate cancer, and this is not the best age for prostate cancer. And this is something where prostate cancer is nearly in parallel to pancreatic cancer,
right,
because it's nearly unstoppable. So I'm not a magician. So of course you can do some combinations of treatments, but and sometimes definitely it is still working also in younger patients. And I also had young patients in the 40s. We could save some more years, but in the end this is an age with cancer which is too young.
Right.
Therefore it's so aggressive.
We have some, by the way, we have some discussions back at home. I mean, in terms of PET, CT, PSMA diagnostics. So I've noticed you have a gallium, PSMA, PET, CT, right?
We are doing
so
gallium.
we have a long-term discussion back home about the fluoride, right? Or how you call it exactly? Fluoride or fluor?
Fluoride.
Fluoride.
The
Or
fluoride, PSMA, yeah.
Do you think, what do you think, are they kind of equal in terms of the quality of imaging?
There are different fluorine 18 compounds, and you have to look at the data. There's also a nice publication out now. We have done a post on the homepage, information about that. And the gallium-68 PSMA 11 we are using is the oldest one, but the most stable one, and the one where we have the most data. And of course, it also comes to experience. I've seen like over 20,000 PSMA PET CTs with gallium-68 and PSMA PET MRI. So because I was the head of the PET MRI here. And so you have engrams in your head, and you see images, and you know at what stage of therapy the patient is at the moment and what image the patient presents. And then you can extract out of that what might be the next reasonable step. Of course, this is nothing you can easily implement in AI, but I mean, this is also the experience you need to build up. If you are very, very experienced, and we are connected to all big university clinics, and a long time our friends in Munich at the Technical University, they were doing also fluorine 18 and still do, 1007. It's the code for the PSMA, and this is the one which is commercially available, and this is why everybody's doing that, because they buy a ready-to-use compound. And this is producing false positive spots in the bone. And sometimes it looks like you cannot even say if there's a metastasis or not, and CT is not helping you, because we know that bone marrow metastasis of prostate cancer are not showing up in CT.
Right.
So you say could be a false positive pitfall or could be like a cancer. And this is something where patients already got irradiated on that, because the nuclear medicine physician says like, oh, this is cancer, then got irradiated, nothing happens. Nothing to the PSA, because it wasn't cancer, it was false positive. And I have a lot of patients also coming to me for gallium-68 after fluorine PSMA PET-CT because they produced false positive things. And then they wanted to see the truth, which is then ridiculous. Then you have two investigations.
After theranostics, when nothing happened, or they just...
No. It was like biochemical relapse, for example. They did a fluorine 18. And also we have done so many biochemical relapse patients. And then you know the PSA doubling time, what can you expect? Is it most likely a local relapse, most likely a lymph node, or could it be a bone metastasis? Right. And if you look at that, and you have to look at all data, and then you can also well interpret fluorine 18 PSMA. If you see this is a slowly increase of PSA and that never can be bone metastasis, so you look at it, and you have several spots in the bone, then you know it's false positive.
Right.
It must be false positive.
So they become suspicious of false positiveness, and then they
and then they come here
okay.
and do gallium PSMA, and you see there's nothing in the bone.
Right.
Yeah? And this is something which is very difficult. And I say, if you can make your life easy, also for you as a physician, but also for the patient, think of the patient getting fluorine 18 PSMA PET and says, oh, I have 5 bone metastases. The patient freaks out and says, like, oh my goodness, I have metastasized cancer, and not I have a small local residual or even no cancer, just like prostate tissue which was left over, you know.
Right.
This is crazy. You know?
How do you use the PET MRI? I mean, how does it help?
Oh, we did. You can see some of our publications, clinical cancer research. We made a bigger publication on PET MRI. We did a prospective study, which is ready now, also with a follow-up on PET MRI, to see parameters, for example, which parameter is most reliable. Then we did the whole mount sections of the prostate. We did it in primary prostate cancer, only with suspicious PSA, no biopsy. And then we did a PSMA PET-CT, and afterwards there was the biopsy, also image-guided biopsy. And then patients with cancer went to surgery. And we had the whole mount sections, and we were able to look in detail what we see. And this is quite interesting because you have various sequences in MRI, which sometimes definitely helps you to have ADC and diffusion-weighted images. And if you combine it all, and we did it also with choline and PSMA, so we had 2 different radio tracers, and the combined information is very, very useful, but then you have like 8,000 to 10,000 images. So we did an AI approach on that, and this is also already published, where we said, okay, computer, look at it, if you have these sequences and this data, and there is tons of data, grayscale, whatever, entropy, it's crazy. I don't know that. This was the expert who did the programming for AI. And he found out that a program can most reliably also produce a Gleason estimation of the tumor and aggressiveness, and tumor, yes, no. Yeah, this is very interesting.
And so what is the added value for today's kind of practice? So this might someday will
of course at university clinic you are interested in the future.
Get rid the poor guys from the biopsy, right? But kind of maybe in a 10-15 years perspective. But how do you use PET MRI clinically now? For what?
Basically, I don't need it at the moment.
Right.
Okay, it is because patients get a 3 Tesla MRI and then they get a PET-CT, and I simply fuse it, and so I can answer all questions. Is it organ exceeding, infiltrating, rectal wall, bladder, whatever is interesting. Right. I mean, for this cancer here was T4, infiltrating the bladder and the rectal wall. Then you say, okay, local treatment might be difficult. If you do radioligand treatment, then the patient, I mean, I don't want to do advertising for that, but I mean, the patient was still having continence. The patient still was had potency. The potency was still there, and so everything was still working. No? And you know, patients are mostly suffering when they have big surgery or also external radiation treatment, that they are incontinent, impotent, and so this is a big problem even especially for younger patients. You
Right.
know? So this is, it doesn't care, but if the patient is coming for preparation for surgery and whatever, these are the crucial things you need to know, and therefore of course PET MRI is helping you. If you have a fluorine 18 PSMA PET MRI then, and you have a whole body diffusion weighted image, then maybe you can rule out some false positive PSMA with a diffusion. If you don't have a higher cellular density there, then it's nothing. Anyhow, make life easy and not too difficult. Yeah.
А по поводу жидкостной биопсии, у них же тоже есть очень хороший пример по поводу PCM.
По жидкостной биопсии проект простаты?
Да.
Liquid biopsy.
Yeah, so do you somehow use any liquid biopsy technology for diagnostic treatment?
Liquid biopsy?
Right.
Yeah, this is very interesting. So still we need to find out what is the clinical value, as always. And of course, liquid biopsies, we have an approach where we can use it, but for us most interesting is that we see out of the liquid biopsy if something is working or not. So if we...
MRD, minimal residual?
Excuse me?
Minimal residual, something like?
No, it's more like predictive for treatment. So you take a liquid biopsy of the patient, you have a gallium PSMA PET CT, for example. I'm sorry, maybe it's delivery. You have a gallium PSMA PET CT and you take everything into account to tell the patient, okay, it makes sense to do radioligand treatment for you or not. There's a study going on now at the University Clinic from the Christian Doppler Laboratory, which is led by Alex Haug, who's my substitute here, and they do such a study. And this is very, very interesting because predictive markers are very important. And then if we say it doesn't make any sense for the patient to do radioligand therapy because it's not working. There's a small percentage where it's not working, but for that patient you can save a lot of time for them, you can save radionuclides, and this is just a waste of time and money for him to do the therapy. Then he needs other therapies. Just a second, maybe. Ja, kannst du vielleicht schauen? Ich erwarte eine CD von einem Patienten, vielleicht ist es DHL. Danke dir. A patient sent, this is a delivery service, a parcel service, because the patient sent a CD. This is also something. Patients always want to send CDs. I mean, there's so much electronic tools available. Send me the data online, also secure. And then it's very fast. And this is what, let's say, most of the patients are doing, also from the US especially. They are sending it via the internet over a secure transfer.
US Post.
That's it. and not like that.
Marcus, maybe sending CD, it's like listen music on vinyl.
Yeah, vinyl, right. Yeah, this is the vinyl version.
But then you open it and find out that it doesn't work. Right?
Yeah, right, because it's getting cold or somebody banned it. Very good, very good. No, I mean using IT and what we already have for data and computing is very, very helpful and makes processes much quicker. Also, if we have a video call with a patient and whatever, you can show data, you can shift some presentation slides, and the patient visualize what's going on. And what is theranostic? What you see is what you treat. And then you can talk also about side effects. What about kidneys? What about salivary glands? Do they suffer? What is the data on that? And we have done a series of data the past 10 years for salivary glands and for kidneys. And we have done kidney scintigraphy monitoring over the years. Then we have done salivary gland scintigraphy, what is about the performance of the salivary glands. And we haven't seen any severe xerostomia and severe kidney failure in these patients. If patients have a very much pre-damaged kidney, for example, then they can run into kidney failure, but it's not really sure if it's due to radioligand therapy or if they would have get that anyways because of fibrosis after external radiation of the ureters and also surgeries. A lot of patients get extended field surgery, lymph node dissection. This is no oncologic approach in prostate cancer, taking out all the lymph nodes. You have lymphocells, you have huge legs, and this is not an oncological benefit, but a lot of surgeons are doing that. No. This is
It used to be the oncologic surgery should be big. Now it's getting smaller.
Yeah, I have a lot of urologists, very advanced, I'm working together with, and it's very important. For example, in prostate cancer patients, that the mechanics are working, like voiding the bladder, because we need obviously the kidneys for excreting lutetium PSMA, also for everything else. Then they need a transural resection, for example, of the tumor. Then you get tissue. You can do tissue analysis from that. You can do next generation sequencing and everything what is needed and directly has an impact, BRCA, PD-L1, whatever, on therapy. And this is a common approach we are also offering, but which is very necessary for the patient. Then voiding the bladder is working, you have genetic testing, analysis, and you have another treatment option maybe.
So true.
So you really need a common approach. We are also working together with the Proton Center in Wiener Neustadt. So sometimes if you see patients that have a very, very good response to radioligand treatment, but you see like 1 or 2 metastases that still have the same uptake and you don't know why, because maybe it's a clone or tumor is always heterogeneous. Then we say, okay, let's try another kind of radiation like the carbon ion or the protons. Mostly we use carbon ion treatment then. They have carbon ion treatment, and then we use carbon ion treatment, and we say, they say carbon ion treatment is stopping the migration of tumor cells as well to a certain extent, which is important.
It's for radio-resistant?
Right, if it's like somehow resistant on a beta emitter like lutetium. Of course, you can also use an alpha emitter, but if it's only 1 metastasis and the rest is protected of the body because you did lutetium PSMA, then we say, okay, let's go to the Proton Center, to the carbon ion treatment, and then they do to these single metastases, they do the carbon ion treatment. So this is also a combined approach.
And you combine with carbon ion because it's quite rare, this technology, because of biology effectiveness of this method that's higher than proton therapy, I mean.
Right, and what I said, that they say the migration of cancer cells. So if you do a classical radiation, it's like a little bit like a bomb. You bomb into that, you need security distance to that, then you're hurting healthy tissue, of course, but the migration of cells, so I mean the imagination like a bomb, and the tumor explodes and tumor cells are spreading, and then you have other metastases. So this is what is quite common. In the beginning of PSMA imaging, we said like, oh, there are 2 bone metastases. Let's send him to radiation. It's still done. Yeah? Let's send him to radiation. Then you see a little bit in the PSA, but not too much, and then PSA is rising again. Coming back to PSMA imaging, 5 new metastases. So the patient can spend his whole rest of the life in a radiation facility, because you don't need to go there for 10 sessions or whatever. This is so annoying, and it is ridiculous because it's not an oncologic approach. So if you use the carbon ion on a single metastasis that is left over after a systemic treatment with radioligand therapy, then you might have the chance that you kill that clone which is not really responding to your therapies. And this is a totally different approach. And the migration, they say, the migration of cells with the carbon ion is not there. So it's not like a bomb which explodes the cells. This is what they say. I mean, nothing is 100%, we all know that. But the idea might be a sophisticated
And you
one.
have this opportunity in Austria or in Germany?
Yeah, it's close by. It's Wiener Neustadt. We are working closely together with them. Dr. Galalay from there and Dr. Mock. So we are very close.
So there is an institute there you can...
The same limo
Yeah.
takes the patient.
As I said, so we are a circle of everyone. So you can get any treatment you want to have or which is reasonable.
So carbon ion treatment you can receive, you can make here in the Vienna region.
Yeah, it's Vienna Newtown, Wiener Neustadt, which is like 30 minutes from here or so. Not too much. We can also organize a limousine bringing the patient there. Now, this is what I call a common approach, you know, that I'm not a standalone here. I'm doing a part of the treatment, but it is important to adapt the treatment to the individual patient.
Okay, thank you for this clinical presentation. Maybe we can sit there in this or...
Just one last, because you ask about it. One last, this is also old data from Heidelberg, where you ask about actinium after lutetium. And that was a patient just shortly tried to be treated by lutetium twice, and he was progressive under lutetium, and then they did 3 times actinium. And you see this is a very good success here in that patient who had everything. He like 11 cycles docetaxel and 10 cycles cabazitaxel, which is really exhausting. And then after twice actinium PSMA, it was almost done, and then another one, it was a complete response. But you also see if you do 3 times actinium, also twice actinium, then the salivary glands are suffering. It's not like a total xeostomia, but patients are really suffering from that. And this is why we try to do, 1 actinium. There's also now data from South Africa, where they always did these 3 therapies, and the success was already there after 1 therapy. And then they did 2 more, and this is not really what we are doing here. And this is just in short, it's the fibroblast activating protein inhibitor. And you see various cancers, big community of solid tumors, and you see everything what has uptake except for kidneys and bladder is cancer. So breast cancer, for example, it's also working in prostate cancer, pancreatic, colorectal. So this is a perfect, or should be a perfect target, because you don't have uptake in other organs. The only limitation is your blood work. So if you are injecting too much through the blood work, it's also a limit, then you are killing the blood cells, and only temporarily. But if you kill all temporarily, it's also not a good idea. So the limitation is the dose. But the target is excellent, and we just have to figure out how we can make the attachment more stable.
Right.
No brain uptake, no muscles uptake.
No.
Just
Any previous
just excretion.
In the previous case where actinium worked after PSMA, you think this is because of the bigger radiation dose of actinium?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the difference, lutetium, a range of 1 to 2 millimeters as approximation, and the alpha emitter actinium has a range of 1 to 2 cell diameters. So this is only working in the cell and the neighbor cell. So, but all the energy is deposited there.
Localized.
Very, very
Highly
localized. It's also protecting the bone marrow, and this is something I can show you here. This is the South Africa data. You see, this is where we use actinium in these patients. Diffuse infiltration of the whole bone marrow, and you already see this patient had a severe anemia, which is at a level where you have to give blood transfusions. And then after 3 times actinium, you see the bone marrow is clear again, and this was almost 2 years after. And the hemoglobin is almost reaching normal levels again. So you are pushing the tumor away from the bone marrow, which is blocking your bone marrow producing your blood, you're pushing it away and the body recovers. Also the platelets, look at the platelets here. Platelets were going down. It's not a critical level, it's okay, but then they increased again. So this is something which is really impressive.
Within, you said 2 years?
You see, this was in July 18, and
Oh,
this was
1.5.
January, 1.5,
Okay,
yeah.
so gradually increases, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
This is also, patients have to be, as the name said, patient, because it's not like working the next day. The next day, of course, you can also feel some nausea or tired or exhausted. It is a big tumor burden and we have to treat it. It is, compared to chemotherapy, is on a very, very much lower level. But of course, they feel something of the therapy then. Some patients, some say they feel literally
And
nothing.
you didn't treat them with any, because I've seen one such patient back home in Russia. The patient was treated by lutetium and then actinium, and he had very low platelet. Well, actually not critical, but kind of 70. And we were actually not sure should we give him thrombopoietins or not. And you just leave the patient alone and he just gradually recovered, right? Without
Right, but I mean, of course it is supportive to do GCSF, for example, and it could be supportive if you're at a very, very low white blood cell count.
Right.
And also we do, if the patient is coming with a hemoglobin of 8, for example, pre-treatment, then we say definitely you need blood transfusions before and during treatment.
Right.
Just to support and because patients are feeling so exhausted with 8 and below 8 definitely, so they need blood transfusions.
And what's the time between these injections? You told that it was 3 injections of...
Here?
Yeah.
I think their protocol is like 6 to 8 weeks. Our protocol is a bit more sharp. We do like 4 weeks. Also for actinium, we do 4 to 5 weeks. Actinium has a longer half-life, so you can do also 5 to 6 weeks. It's also okay.
It was a great pleasure to obtain this invitation to go to Vienna and to have a look at this clinic, because one thing is to see the nice website and your brochures, and absolutely another feeling and another story to be here in this completely fancy and very new and high-tech looking clinic. And can you tell us a couple of words about the story of this clinic, this building? Because I see that it's not 1 week or 1 month reconstruction. It may be it's your story. And
yeah,
your
but actually we did it pretty quick, I have to say. So it was in 2018 where we said like, okay, what is the best location? Are we going outside of Vienna or stay inside Vienna? And then we say, okay, if we want to do something very personalized for the patient, then we don't have like 10 patients in a row and do that therapy, but we have time for each and every patient. So let's do it in the center of Vienna, because patients always come with families, relatives and friends and so on. They can stay in the nicest hotels here. And then fortunately, my partner's father was owning this house here.
Oh, wow.
And then we said, okay, is there anything free in that house? And then of course we thought about radiation protection and all the obligations we get from the authorities. And we did some negotiation with the radiation protection officers, and they said, no, this might be possible, thick walls and everything, and then it comes up to what frequency of patients, what amount of things. And then we started refurbishing. We said like, well, we do a new therapy, let's do a institution that looks a little bit like Star Trek, and next generation. Next generation treatment requires next generation refurbishing. The architect was also doing some nightclubs here in Vienna and some towers in Dubai and so on, so he was very fancy, and he was also a friend of us, because first of all we said, I think we cannot afford that, and he said, well, I will do that.
It's a story how you met an architect.
Well, right. No, actually my kids met him, so because our kids were in the same class, so that was very fortunate. And then we built up that here, and we really wanted that the patient feels on the one hand a bit fancy, as you said, and modern, but on the other hand, like a little bit like at home, and say, okay, this is not a cancer institution which is so cold and unpersonal. It is something where I'm very in a discreet and privacy situation, and also that we discuss on the same level. If you see the office, that we are on the same level and we are elaborating a therapy together for him.
Yes, because for me it's completely border, no limiting practice in hospital design, as I'm involved in hospital design since a long time, and for me it's a big pleasure to see such kind of medical institution, because usually the radiotherapy or biomedicine institutions looks like military object,
right.
Like a bunker, and not like a comfort area for doctors and for patients. And I have to add that we are now in a central historical part of the Vienna, 10 minutes of walk from Stephanplatz. And yeah, it's very interesting.
We are also surrounded by 2-3 of the nicest hotels of the world. So the Kempinski is foot walking distance, the Park Hyatt is foot walking distance. They are highly ranked as best hotels in the world. So patients can really stay at the various levels of hotels we have here in foot walking distance, and this is really nice then. Yeah.
So it's a good example of really patient-oriented clinic and doctor-oriented clinic. But usually many person who is involved in such projects, or investors, or oncologists who trying to realize such level of clinic, faced with many bureaucracy and authority problems. Because of location, because of patient flow, of radiation safety, etc., etc. It's a mess of paper, mess of limits, bureaucracy limits. What is your receipt? What is your story? Because it's very interesting how you achieve this in so short time frame.
I mean, it is something where it's all about people, as always. So, I mean, if you know the right people that are supportive for you, and I mean supportive in a way that they explain what is radiation, what it is all about, and what is the critical thing about radiation, what are the limits, and we can explain that you are totally here in the limits because of the construction and the patient flow. And if you have people that are experts in that field, and this is why we are already for decades in that business, that we know experts in that field, and they can, and it was a lot of paperwork, definitely, to explain that and to deliver measurements of radiation from patients, from outside the building, from everything. Also the documentation, and this is something what Professor Watzak is doing very sophisticatedly. You always have to document what is coming in radiation, what is going on, what is going out, what is in the patient, what is waste management of radioactivity and all that. And if you are doing that very sophisticatedly, then that works. And so we were making a plan which was very elaborated from the very beginning, and then we presented the plan. And then there was very little questions about that. If you are going somewhere and say, okay, I want to do that, but I have literally no idea what to do, then it's difficult, because then others have to think about it. If you take it ahead and have everything in detail already and present it and say, okay, we are really experts on that field because we are working with that for decades already. And then they say, okay, I mean, this is a good plan, this is an elaborated plan. And
so it was an expert team involved from the beginning
Definitely.
to this project.
Yeah.
So you have some support from EIA, for example, because EIA it's not far from here as well.
Yeah, so we have some points where we, let's say, try to find out if we can work together, also concerning other European countries and our other European regions. And this is always, let's say, it's good to know people, especially Professor Watzak, who is the treasurer of the EINM, the European Association of Nuclear Medicine, also has a lot of connections to other people, and of course the Atomic Agency is also very, very important. And this is why we work together in a network, and networking is one of the most important things.
And I presume you have some kind of quality system or quality management system. As I saw in your laboratory, the quality control equipment.
It's not only laboratory, it's also for private practices and institutions here in Vienna. You have to reach some standards of quality for hygienic standards and so on and so on. Then the other is the radiation protection quality system, so that you also are, you have visits and audits by the authorities on a yearly basis. They come and they look at your documentation, they look at the facility. For example, in the therapy room, everything has to be without any corners and so on, that you can wipe it, and if there's any radiation coming to the wall or so, you have to easily wipe it, and also on the floor. This is very important, and this is a process they check when they give you the permission that you can do the therapy, but also check on a yearly basis what you are doing. So you are constantly controlled by the authorities and need to present your documentation and your quality checks. And then the quality of the production of the radiopharmaceutical, which is of course done with every synthesis. Every time you do the radiopharmaceutical, you need quality checks, HPLC, DC, and so on, that you have a purification, that you have a clean product you are allowed to inject into humans.
So you started in 2019 this project?
2018 we started refurbishing, and then first patient in was February 2019 here.
Okay, before the COVID ages.
Yeah, that was. I don't know. So if that was really supportive for us, that this was going, because we have a lot of foreign patients traveling, and the travel issues were of course horrible. Anyhow, we managed, because cancer was not stopping just because of COVID. So, but on the other hand, we see horrible causes because patients didn't dare to go to a hospital. But yeah, our patients were coming, and through the whole time I had to write a lot of documents for approval, for allowance from the government here. There was official governmental document. A physician has to sign that the patient is allowed to travel. So, but doesn't matter if it's COVID or whatever, or visa or so. So we always support here with all medical documents needed for traveling. So we have patients also from other countries where they need visa, and apply for visa, and we always support them with all documents.
So you have patients from all over the world.
Yeah.
That was my question actually. What patient share you have, local patients or international patients?
We have like over 90% international patients.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the local, and this is also quite good idea, because the local patients here are treated mostly in the hospital, which is good, because I mean we have this big social security and insurance system here in Vienna, which we are literally paying.
And they are covered.
and they are covered, and so they get it also in the hospital. Of course, we have some Austrian patients who want to have it here in total privacy, but there's no real need that they go to a private institution.
And the majority of patients, international patients, are from US, right? Yeah, as I could hear.
Right. A lot of from US, but then everything what is eastwards from us here, so Romania, Hungary, and so on, the whole Balkans area, and then Italy, we have patients, and Germany, for example. We now have emerging market in Germany. German patients are coming.
Why is that? Because they're not covered at home, or?
I mean, in Germany it was pretty much developed first, and in Heidelberg, and then of course they also made this named patient use, but now as Novartis product Pluvicto is approved, they come to more and more to do the Novartis compound in the hospitals, and so patients who want to have outpatient treatment cannot get it in Germany. You know,
because of the regulations.
Because of regulations.
Okay.
There they don't ask for any measurement. They say 48 hours you have to stay on a ward. And this, let's say this law is because mostly also because of reimbursement purposes. Because a lot of countries in the world are doing outpatient radiotherapy.
Milking money from the system.
It is, because for outpatients they don't get paid, except the patient pays directly.
Right.
So you started in 2018, and at that time you was the first outpatient clinic,
yes.
I think, in the world. Like that.
Not in the world, because as I said, in the US and also when they run the trial on lutetium PSMA, which was starting at that time, they did it for outpatients, which is showing that it's possible to do it for outpatients, and that was also an argument. But for named patient use and for this approach in Europe definitely we were the first ones doing PSMA or dotatate therapy for patients.
So at that time you foreseen some kind of investment in this clinic, and at that time it was some discussion about reimbursement of such treatment, or how you organized your business plan of this clinic.
Well, first of all, not to go too much into detail, but I mean it is a therapy where you just calculate your costs you have. You calculate. We started here when we bought the full compound from Cybersdorf, and we didn't have the whole laboratory facility. This was refurbished then 1.5 years later when we started to make our own production. But I mean, you have costs on the one side, and then you say, okay, a treatment must be at that range that we have with such a number of patients. We are cost effective.
So at that time you had no any approval from local government or from local ministry of
I mean,
health.
this is always the risk when you start a private business, that you can also fail. But I mean, you simply have to dare starting that, and we were starting with the private gallium PSMA PET-CT in 2016. So we already had like 2.5 years experience how it works in privacy, and do we have patients for PSMA imaging. If you have patients for PSMA imaging, you also see patients suitable for PSMA therapy. And then you have a concept, and then you say, okay, this is a concept where you really have your personalized doctor who is doing that therapy and providing everything, and you don't have to queue up somewhere or don't get it at all, which is also possible. So, and then it started that these patients were also suitable for therapy, and this is why it was even better than we ever have thought. So it worked from the very beginning.
Because for most of the entrepreneur, for most of business people, the new oncology or new clinical project, it's always a problem, because there is no finance or reimbursement approval. So it's a question, what is the first, egg or chicken, reimbursement or some kind of approvals from local medical authorities, or the the risk of the investor that or the doctor or the chief doctor that's starting the project and starting to develop this project for his own investment money.
I mean the hurdle is that you have to invest a lot of time and intelligence into getting these approvals. I think it's also possible in other countries, but you really need people who are very much into that business and I mean into the medical part and into the radiation part. And then if authorities are willing to give that permission to you, and don't say from the very beginning on, no, we don't want to have that. I mean, we are talking about cancer treatment. And actually everybody wants to have cancer treatment because we have a risk of nearly 30% in the population to get cancer. So you want to have a cancer treatment facility. And then it's just like argumentation and safety. And this can be guaranteed.
Yeah, everybody want to have a good treatment, but everybody afraid of bureaucracy. Even bureaucracy afraid bureaucracy because the people in authorities usually don't know about this new way of treatment, this new way of safety.
Yeah.
So and
this is why it takes time. You really need time to explain, and I mean. Also, the official authorities only want to understand what's going on. So if they take the time and say, okay, and this is why you need people who know people, because then these people take time and sit together and say, okay, now I understand what's going on, and this is why I won't prevent it. And yeah, I think that maybe was the key.
One of the questions is why Minute Clinic? I mean,
Minute Medical.
Right.
You didn't see it on the screen. Molecular internal nuclide therapy.
Okay.
And
it's acronym.
It's quick. This is why we said like, okay, within a minute.
And
we don't say within a minute. I mean, actinium is like 30 seconds.
A message and acronym.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that just came up to our mind, and then. It's all in if you do trials like the Vision trial or the Hero trial, for example, then it always means something and also implies something.
What I see, and you talked about it during your presentation, it's a good level of communication between you and other clinics, other clinicians located here in Vienna. So that's, from my point of view, very good approach, because it's very good for patient. And what about your supply chain? Because I presume the most of radiopharmaceuticals you are using here not produced in Vienna or in Austria. How you are dealing with that?
Yeah, most of the radionuclides. So the pharmaceuticals is something we can buy on a half-year base because it's out of the fridge, and this doesn't matter where we buy it in the world. Of course, we also have the partners there, but I think Wolfgang can tell you more about that. And the nuclides, the critical part, so which has half-life and you have to use it right now. There, of course, are the official companies. We can buy it in Munich, for example, and also there are now like 3 different companies that provide lutetium, for example. Actinium is a bit more difficult at the moment, but we still have a supply chain for that. And then, as you mentioned, Austria, because we have the only facility in Austria is Cybersdorf, bringing you the full compound lutetium PSMA, for example. They also get the lutetium then again from Munich. And from the suppliers from Munich. I mean, Munich is also only a distributor and gets it from Belgium, from nuclear power plants. So this companies and supply chain is really stable and reliable. And then Cybersdorf is also trying to set up to produce their own lutetium. And then of course we also have something, lutetium from Austria. Austria is a bit a problem because we are here an atomic free zone, totally. So there's no nuclear power plant in Austria.
But you have EIA.
Yeah, right. We have
And
something.
and they know where to be located.
They try to prevent radiation and protect Austria from radiation. No, I mean, of course, if everybody is saying like we don't want to have nuclear power plants, nobody is thinking about the medical purpose of nuclear power plants. And if we don't have nuclear power plants, we don't have any kind of supply for lutetium. And yeah, and this is what they want to build up then in Cybersdorf.
And lutetium at the moment it's about 90% of your cases, or
Yeah, let's say it like that. Lutetium is really ideal for therapy concerning range, half-life, and so on. Of course, yttrium is also possible if you want to use the advantages of yttrium. Sometimes it's maybe beneficial, especially if you think about the FAPI therapy, because of the different qualities of radiation in yttrium. Yeah, and actinium. Actinium is for us the ideal thing for the alpha emitter therapy. Anyhow, there are a lot of approaches, zirconium and so on, lead. But first of all, you need here the approval for the radionuclide from the authorities, and we have it at the moment only for actinium, lutetium, and radium. Because this is what we need. And then second, you need the chemistry for that. So it is different chemistry. If you get a different nuclide, you need a different chelator and a different structure of your ligand. So it's not that easy that you say, okay, let's switch.
quality control, additional host cells.
Definitely. You have to measure it as well. So it's also with actinium, it's already difficult to measure because an alpha emitter, you shield with a piece of paper. So this is also difficult to measure. Yeah? And you need to measure which activity you give to the patient.
Do you believe that lutetium will be produced by cyclotrons any soon, or
Yeah, this is what I said was what Cybersdorf wants to set up. Yeah, I hope that it is produced very soon. We also always need the non-carrier added lutetium, also because of the different half-lives, waste management. So we only need the pure compound here. Also with the actinium, there's also actinium which is contaminated with the 227 actinium with a much longer half-life, and we don't want to have that. So we always look that we get the pure medical compound, which is then that we can calculate the half-lives as well for our waste management.
During last ENM Congress, I saw a lot about a new production site of actinium in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Actinium will replace soon the lutetium market, or it's
so
not,
first of
not
all,
so fast?
we need prospective studies as same as in lutetium PSMA, and this is taking several more years until we have the results. Then second, as for prostate cancer, for example, the salivary glands are still suffering very much under actinium, and therefore the side effects for the patients are, sometimes patients don't accept these side effects. They say, okay, then let's find another cancer treatment or no treatment of the cancer. It is really like that, because if you are then completely dry mouth, dry eyes and everything, then you have no taste anymore, you cannot swallow anymore. So repeatedly doing only actinium is very questionable in PSMA. But if you have PSMA compounds that are not accumulating in the salivary glands, which I don't know at the moment because it is simply PSMA we have in the salivary glands, then of course actinium gets more important. For FAP therapy, for other tumors, I think it's a real game changer. That there are some experiments already on pancreatic cancers with actinium FAP, and they see somehow remissions in pancreatic cancer. So for these very aggressive cancers, you need very aggressive compounds and nuclides. And if you only have excretion with the FAP through the kidneys, you can void it pretty fast, and then you have only irradiation to tumor lesions. And this might be a game changer. Therefore, I think maybe actinium might be a game changer for that.
By the way, do you have a specialized waste management for urine and all the biologics here, or they just go to
No,
a general?
this is the point why we were allowed to say we are an outpatient clinic. So patients are after therapy. This is why I always say before therapy you want to go to the bathroom, and then after therapy they should leave the facility and stay anywhere. That doesn't matter, because the distribution in let's say in the whole system, not only here in Vienna but somewhere, is really unmeasurable. This is so, the dilution is so much that you can say, okay, there's nothing be above any level. But if everybody is going here to the toilet and they said like, maybe not a good idea. So this house is also producing a lot of water, and then the waste is also diluted a lot. But the authorities said, okay, please, the patients afterwards can leave. And they literally can leave. I mean, they feel very good and they feel nothing from the therapy, so they can definitely leave afterwards. And for the other waste management, when we have small amounts left in the tube or in the glass bottle or whatever, we store it behind lead, and then you wait like 70 days, 10 half-lives for lutetium, for example, and then it's below any measurable level.
Mikhail is also founder of outpatient clinic in Moscow, and so Mikhail, what do you think? Will it be this type of clinic? Will it be the game changer in upcoming years, or it will be developed in parallel with big institutions and university centers?
Yeah, I think when we're starting up our clinic, we also gained some experience from US practices where they have it very common. And I think it's a game changer for the patient experience and patient journey, because as Mark said, it's very individualized approach, and we can address many personal needs of the patients where we cannot do it in the huge facilities. And so this kind of experience that guys have here, I think, will also show to the market, to the people, that this can be done in such a way that patients feel themselves maybe not at home, but closer to that, rather than in the hospital. And this is a very important for, as I said, for patient experience and journey. And it's a hard journey for the patients, so this is a very important thing for them and for the families. And I'm sure that this is the way to go forward with this type of therapies.
What is your prognosis of the future regarding this kind of technology or development of outpatient radionuclide therapy centers? Or what is your personal vision or feeling of this market?
We already see a trend. So, I mean, as you know, when we are on the annual meetings and discussing with others, professionals out of the nuclear medicine sector, then they say, of course, this therapy needs to be outsourced to outpatient clinics, or we need it in the outpatient facility of our clinic or whatever, because they share, of course, the same opinion as we already heard. And when we started here in 2018, of course, everybody was like yelling at us, how can you do that? This is not possible, and this is maybe against the law. And we said like, no, I mean, we are conformed to the law, we proved it. And then step by step over the last years, they said like, oh, why are not we doing that for outpatients? And then it comes like that they start right now and try to do it also, at least get confirmations, apply for confirmation that they also can do it for outpatients. And this is something where I'm really proud that we were a bit disruptive and bringing it to that point that people are now saying, look at Minute Medical, what they are doing. They are doing it for outpatients. They have success. They present data which is similar to the hospitalized data in therapy response. And I think maybe even better, because tumor and cancer and the psychology has a lot of common supportive base. If patients come here and they feel exhausted, but they see that the treatment is easy and they see a success in the following weeks, then they are really encouraged. But in the same time, they can stay with their loved ones, with their relatives and so on, and it's not dangerous for the relatives. So the psychological part, lying on a ward and see other cancer patients at other stages, and even if you are not feeling bad, having pain, and you are not at the totally end stage, but you see the patients, then you say, oh, this is where I will be next week or so, or the next month. And this is so exhausting, and this is so much bringing you down from the psychological part of you. This is why I think it's technically possible to do it for outpatients, and it's good for the patient and psychology. Yeah, what about your patients you have? So, I mean, do we have some common approach, let's say it like that, or some patients where you say, okay, these patients might be suitable for radioligand therapy?
Yeah, no, they're not much, because I don't do only prostate cancer. I do pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm.
But for years, I sent some patients for treatment. I started with, you know better than me, the Kratos in Finland.
Mm-hmm.
They have also private clinic, and it was very convenient for them, because they use 2 trains from, for example, Moscow, St. Peter, and then to Finland. And I started sending to them when PSMA PET appeared. Now they have facilities in Russia as well. But I didn't actually. Dima told me about your clinic, because I didn't know that it exists. And that happened like 2 months ago when we were preparing for the visit. So definitely we might.
But we also started, since we're not doing only the prostate cancer, we do the FAPI now, so it's like many other solid tumors.
Right, you're doing FAPI now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So first of all, the PET-CT, FAPI therapy in the world is still experimental. So we are able to do, and we have done that because, for example, Wolfgang's father died from pancreatic cancer, and of course at the end stage we tried to do something for him, and still it's very experimental. And the FAP goes to, most of the FAP compounds are attaching to the tumor, and then they are disappearing after 60 minutes or 20. And then there are now compounds coming up with a longer resistant time, and this is very good, and still it's in a development phase, but we can offer it as in this named patient use. So this is why this is something we can really offer within the next month.
Which tumor do you think is the most responsive?
It always depends a little bit on the so-called uptake. So it is just like how much of the compound goes in a special lesion. And there is, for example, sarcomas, but also breast cancer showed a very high uptake, and also pancreatic cancer. And on the other hand, pancreatic cancer is so aggressive that it's growing so fast, and that you have with a radiation therapy, you often have no real success. We need higher doses in that tumor. But there are first initial results also from Germany where they had some kind of success. But as you always know, retrospective data they are presenting, it's always bright and perfect, and then if you look behind it, then
the real world evidence.
The real world is different. Yeah. So we are able to do that, and but it is so heterogeneous. Now you have a field of 30 different cancers, and you cannot say, come on, this is gastric cancer, for example, or esophagus. Per se, it doesn't have any uptake in FAP. No, it's wrong. So you do the imaging again, and this is the entry. You have the theranostic approach. You do imaging, then you see it, and what you see you can treat.
Probably patients usually don't go just for staging, but actually gallium FAPI has outperformed what was it, the latest?
FDG,
yeah,
the standard, yeah. So
Okay.
FDG has so much, let's say, pitfalls, benign uptake, inflammatory uptake. So FAP also in very acute inflammations, it has some uptake, but mainly it is just excluding false positive FDGs.
Right.
Funny enough, there is, turns out that FDG shows a lot of false positives after the COVID vaccination.
Yeah,
Which the FAPI
right.
doesn't.
In lymph nodes, for example, and they also have histology already from that. Yeah, so. And as everybody is vaccinated, we have a lot of false positive findings.
You mean it might stay long term after the vaccination?
They have done now up to a couple of months. Yeah.
After vaccination?
Yeah,
In
that they
lymph
did
nodes.
histology, but I mean, they still proved that mRNA was in the lymph nodes, and then it also stays longer. So
That's why I'm against the boosters, because there is no enough science for them.
it was not enough science for the first vaccination.
Well, and
But it's okay.
Yeah, you get a
it's a
false
totally
positive.
different topic. Totally different topic. No, but this is interesting, and I think Dimitri, you are also interested in some kind of patient flow, maybe. Maybe we
Yes, because we have many contacts in different areas. As I told to you, we are active in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan area, in different regions of Russia. So for me, it's good knowledge.
I mean, this is new. We are well prepared here, of course, for Russian patients. The homepage is native translated, and we have Anna, so they are highly welcome. Still, we are, as a private facility, we are not, let's say, so much influenced by politics as maybe bigger hospitals. But the situation at the moment, of course, doesn't make it easier for Russian patients, but still we are physicians and we treat patients.
Yeah, it's a big problem at the moment, because from this case, for sure, suffering many patients, many doctors,
Yeah.
and of course it's a very high blocking factor for technologies development.
Yeah.
And the guys from Teраностикс Association, they also kind of elevate awareness about these options, because as I said, the hospitals, leading hospitals, do 10th of cases per year, and still does look overcrowded, because people don't know about that this is, an option, and so the patient flow will grow with awareness, I think, as well.
Yeah, awareness of doctors, of
This is an option for them.
everybody. Let's hope that this media, this meeting, will help other institutions, other management people to develop the new way of cancer treatment. And thank you very much for this meeting, for this visit. It's really important and nice to meet real theranostic pioneers and in this nice city.
Thanks for coming and visiting us, and of course everybody is always welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.